Hey, we're going to talk about an early depth chart projection from the Oklahoman coming up next. We'll also talk about Oklahoma's seeding in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about what happened at the SEC softball tournament as well, coming up here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, we're going to talk Oklahoma seeding in the NCAA softball tournament, what they got coming up, and what happened in the SEC softball tournament. We got some Sooner magic to talk about as well. But we're going to first look at Colton Sulley's depth chart projection that he wrote over at the Oklahoman. You can find that over there. But Jay, let's look first at the offensive side of the ball. If you're watching here on YouTube, I got the graphic up there for you. Not a whole lot of surprises here when you look at this. Obviously, John Mateer, Jadyn Ott starting in the backfield. At tight end, we can start here. At tight end, he's got Will Huggins over Carson Kent, Jay.
And that makes sense. I think Huggins is the one that everybody raved the most about in practice. So you can expect for him to be the one that gets most of the burn. And then Kent right behind him. I'm still trying to figure out what else is going on in that tight end room. What's the other guys from John Locke down to Trinae Washington? What are we going to get out of them? Still, speaking of which, Trinae Washington is the one that I want to see get on the field more. I think he has really good potential. He can stretch the field. He's a lot faster than he looks. And as he puts on that size, that college tight end size, he's going to be a problem. So ready to see what he turns into this coming season or whatnot. But I think the one that really got me was a couple things that jumped out. One, Xavier Robinson right behind Jadyn Ott. Now, I totally understand that Xavier Robinson is, we're kind of expecting X-Rob to have another, big year after what he gave us against Alabama, but dealt with, being banged up and couldn't produce as much against, Missouri against LSU. But I'm wondering if with Taylor Tatum back there, how much, I've heard that Jim Nagy's very high on him, similar to he was on Ott. He goes off of his NFL scouting when it comes to players, and Tatum is one that's big on his list. So I'm wondering if X-Rob's really going to supplant him, or if we're going to see. Cause, we all know Javonte Barnes still on the roster, but he's still dealing with that foot. So I think he'll just be a rotational piece. But if X-Rob's going to be able to really take that spot away from Taylor Tatum.
That's going to be a big fall camp battle, that RB2 spot, because you've got a guy in Xavier Robinson, had the big game against Alabama. You got a guy like Taylor Tatum who's got all the potential in the world, just has to hold on to the football. And then you've got that veteran in Javonte Barnes, who what you're going to get when Javonte Barnes is out on the field. What will they feel most comfortable with coming out of fall camp? That's going to be the question. And I think we could see a week-to-week, variation at RB2. The other question was interesting was at left guard. So looking at the starting off, we got to start here at wide receiver. Elijah Thomas projected to be a starter per Colton Sulley, and Colton mentioned in his article over at the Oklahoma, and he said, by all accounts, Elijah Thomas was dominating spring ball. Not good. He wasn't good. He wasn't showing flashes. He was dominating spring ball.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the dude's an athletic freak. If you've ever heard me talk about him as a recruit, I mentioned that he has a lot of CeeDee Lamb traits at that young age. And I'm not saying CeeDee Lamb today at the Dallas Cowboys. I'm talking about CeeDee Lamb when he came in as a freshman, which he did play as a freshman for Oklahoma. He has a lot of those traits. Very athletic, great job spotting the ball and getting it at the high point. And in space, really tough to defend. Now, a lot of people will point out he played at Chakota, a smaller school in Oklahoma. I totally get where you want to go, but you've seen a ton of players from small schools go out there and dominate. It's a very common thing. If the traits are there, the traits are there. And I think Elijah Thomas has those. And so Emmett Jones has another toy to play with to decide on how he wants to use them. Ben Arbuckle's going to probably move him around and have him play a few spots to see which ones jump out. But that's the word on the streets. He's been dominant in practice. He's one that a lot of people were like turning their head saying, whoa, that kid's going to be something. And if that's the case, it's hard to keep players like that off the field unless something else is keeping them off. And I don't think that's going to be the problem with Elijah Thomas.
Yeah, you want to find guys that are able to not just make the plays when the ball's thrown their way and they've got open space, but they're guys that can make plays after the catch. And he certainly has the ability to make plays after the catch. He's going to fight for the football in the air as well. And you need those kind of things. It's not enough just to make the catch and get tackled. You got to make the catch and create, and those are the traits that separates the greats from the good. And if he can do that, and if he's already doing that in spring ball, I'm encouraged, man, and I'm excited about what his potential could be in the fall. But looking at the offensive line, Colton Sulley has it projected like this: left tackle Jacob Sexton, left guard Heath Ozida, center Troy Everett, right guard Febechi Wewu, and right tackle Derek Simmons. Now, the left guard piece is probably the one that's most fascinating here because a lot of people are projecting Eddie Pierre-Louis to be the starting left guard, but we know that Heath Ozida had some good moments in the fall, and they're very high on his potential at left guard.
And it makes sense. He played a lot of it last year. He got a lot of burn and was pretty solid when he did play, especially when healthy. The question more so to me is his time off, has it opened the door for Eddie Pierre-Louis to get most of the burn? He did do most of it in the spring. He was the de facto starter, and if he grasps Ben Arbuckle's system faster than the way Heath did, good chance that Heath is just his backup, and they rotate both of them, play them both a lot. Like, it's okay to rotate linemen if you've got guys with experience that you feel comfortable with. And I could totally see him coming in there and rotating with Eddie Pierre-Louis at that left guard space while Eddie is still, building himself up as a redshirt freshman. He's one of the few, honestly, him, Fogier, as well as Michael Fasusi are the freshmen / redshirt freshmen that I'm way more comfortable with going ahead and playing than anything. Eddie Pierre-Louis was expected to play last year if he had came in the spring. And now that he is here, Bill Beatonbow's got himself someone fun to, like I said, toss into the lineup. And we all want to see him on a GT pull, GT counter, and just coming down like a freight train hitting somebody. Was a track kid. He did run track at his size. So that one, I can see the Ozida love. I kind of think that Eddie's going to end up supplanting him when the season starts.
Well, I just think that when you've been out of spring ball, yes, you've got some things that you can build off of from fall, from actually playing against SEC competition. You got the Alabama game that you can hang your hat on. Still not being available and not practicing and not participating with the first team offensive line kind of puts you back a little bit. That doesn't mean that he can't come in fall camp and then, reestablish himself as the starter at left guard. I just think he's got stiff competition to do so. And I think that's what's great about what the offensive line looks like right now. One, it's generally healthy. Like 9 of the 10 guys that are in your 2 deep are healthy. Heath Ozida is the only one that's coming off of, some surgery and stuff that he's got to rehab from. But the rest of those guys, they were able to practice all spring, except for Jake Michaela. Jake Michaela came in the spring portal, but he's coming in healthy. He's not coming in dinged up, banged up. You're not looking at your 2 deep and thinking, oh man, we hope this guy's healthy. We hope that guy's healthy. And we're relying on the 3 deep. But even if you go 3 deep, you're talking about guys like Logan Howland. You're talking about guys like Luke Baklenko. It looks a lot better than it did even last year. So hopefully you're not having to get that far down your offensive line depth chart in 2025, but it looks better than what it did. And I think that left guard spot is going to be one of the big position battles in fall camp.
Yeah.
We'll see who emerges. And I think you're right, man. Play everybody, play both guys. And you're going to get an opportunity to in those, first 4 weeks, 5 weeks of the season, when you have 3 non-conference games, not against Michigan, but, against the Illinois States and Kent State. And there's one more in there. I can't remember exactly who it is. Temple. Yeah. Those are great opportunities to play a guy like Heath Ozida. And with Febechi Wewu going into his last year of eligibility, you're going to need to continue to build your guard depth, regardless of who ends up starting the majority of your games in 2025. And hey, we'll talk defensive depth chart on tomorrow's episode. We'll give you our thoughts and our reactions and potential camp battles that could take place that could reshape the depth chart on tomorrow's show. So make sure you're tuned in to Locked On Sooners on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We're going to talk softball coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. What seed did Oklahoma get? What was the reaction of some of their opponents? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.